what's up everyone? So this is part 2 of the suspension test video. As you can see, the suspension is exactly the same setup as it was in the last clip of part 1. The only difference is I have the smaller Pitbull rocker tires on, and it's quite a bit wetter out, but I think these tires can handle it. So let's see how it does with the smaller tires on it. Now again, this is the double barrel shocks leaned in towards the center of the chassis with stretchy limit straps, and those limit straps are just rubber bands. No problem at all for these tires. Even though everything's all wet, it was literally just hailing before I hit record on the camera. Let's try that again. Oh, it's still a bit floppy though with the front end lean the way it is, especially. But let's see how we do going up it this way. Again, no problem at all for these tires. See, still a bit floppy though. Now let's go around and try up this other hill real quick. Just for the heck of it, because that wood is pretty slick at the top. So is that moss. Oh no, the torque twisted. There it goes. Ooh, gonna flip if I go that way. There we go, now let's move on. So of course we're doing the same lines as last time. So we're gonna go up through this and then try this side hill right behind the camera. Now I'm not sure how this comes off on video, but with the shorter tires, it actually doesn't torque twist quite as much because it doesn't take as much to turn the shorter tires. Okay, so last spot with this setup, and then I'm going to put some stock springs on here and see how it does. Probably leave the limit straps, but you know, I'm kind of pressed for time and I want to go through as many mods as possible for this video. Alright, now I'm going to change out the suspension, and I'll tell you more about whatever changes I do in the next shot. So I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm back out. This is a very small change to the suspension setup. All I did is move the front shocks so they're straight up in the stock location and left the rear the way they were, so we can see how that performs. Next, I'll put the stock shocks on the front and remove the limiting strap and leave the rear the way it is, see how it does then. So as you can see, even with the hail on the course, no problem at all. I love these rocker tires, and then I go and roll it. Of course. Oh, got the bumper caught. So wow, that does pretty good considering the ice everywhere. So I'd like to mention, now I am an Amen Hobby affiliate, so if you'd like to help the channel out, use my affiliate link in the description below, and I'll get a small kickback off of whatever you buy, which will be nice and definitely help the channel out a lot. All you gotta do is use my link to buy from the site. So yeah, let's move on to the next line. Okay, so moving on, I'm actually quite interested to see how the ice affects the grip on these tires, so we're going right through this. No problems at all so far. Oh, a little hung up there. So moving on to the side hill. Does perfectly fine, as I expected. It is definitely more planted, at least the front end with the shocks up like that. So first thoughts, it is more planted with the shocks straight up, as I assumed, because when the shocks are up like that, they have a little more effect on dampening. When you lean them, you kind of get rid of that because of mechanical advantage. The grip on these tires, I just can't get over it. They're awesome. So again, last spot before we change the suspension again. I know these very subtle changes are hard to get across on camera. I hope I am though. Got a little mud on them, they're starting to get slick. Of course, we gotta try this one. The Obsidian Hill is always super slick. Try this one again. Suspension just offloaded sudden there and over it went. That's what I mean about having a lot of flex and nothing to fight the torque twist a ton. There we go. We're good now. Well, I might have spoke too soon. There it goes. So last line here. Then we'll change up the suspension again. Alright, now let's change up the suspension again and see how it does. Alright everyone, so last run with the double barrels on both the front and rear. This time, as a subscriber requested, I put the stock springs on the double barrels with the limiting straps. And honestly, the straps kind of pull the springs down, so it's the same ride height, but the axles do center a little better with the springs adding a little bit of assistance. I'm sure it won't be a whole lot different than no springs at all because of that. As you can see, it still climbs just as well. Oh, I got a rear tire caught. There we go. You can see it's a bit more stable there because it didn't just flop. Now, one more time, only I'm going to go up this side. And then we'll move on to the next line. Obviously, no problems whatsoever there. You know the drill by now. I don't think I need to explain it again. We're just going through these lines. Obviously, it's not as slick as it was yesterday because there's not a bunch of ice everywhere, but still, these tires didn't seem to mind all that much. Uh-oh. Ah. Still managed to flip it. Let's try that again. Ooh. See, with all that flex in the rear, it just flops over. I think it's going to be the same problem even with the stock shocks up front. Now here's the problem with flex. You can see that front tire wants to suck itself down into a hole, and we're stuck. That's one of the problems with not being able to float a tire. You can see it right there. Okay, third time's the charm. No problems there, to be expected. Now we'll just go over this as we usually would. There we go. Now up the obsidian side. Ah, the obsidian again. Super slick because it's basically glass. You want to be careful on this stuff too, or you could slice a tire. I know it's hard to tell that's what it is, but trust me, it's obsidian. I got some out of a bucket helping my buddy with his move. Well, my buddy's buddy. That's how I got the X-Mod. Come on, we got it. This dirt section here is getting so torn up from all the testing. There it goes. Alright, now I'm going to change to the stock shocks on front, and I'll be okay, so I've made a few changes now. We've got stock shocks on the front, double barrel straight up in the stock location on the rear. I've seen many people comment and say that's how they like to run it. I'm going to try it out. I'm not super confident because with the double barrels in the rear, even with the limit strap, it's still gonna have a lot of torque twist. I mean, it made it, but that's not straight up. Let's try to go up it straight up. Nah, it's gonna go over. One more time. Nice. Now let's move on. Spot, y'all know the drill. Nice. Nice. That was a tricky spot because of how it got hung up too. I don't think it's going to have much of an effect here, but we have to try it since we did with every other setup. Honestly, I think just leaning the stock shocks would have the same sort of effect. You see it was torque leaning out there. There we go. Now let's see how it does here. And again, I might switch it up one more time just to see if I miss any suspension mods you wanted to see. Let me know in the comments and I'll see what I can do. Maybe we can make an ongoing series out of this. I know I do want to try stock shocks lifted with the Mudslinger, so I think that'll be the next shock mod that we'll try out. Nice. One last spot, and then we'll move on to the next suspension mod. We're going to try a lifted mud truck setup next. Alright, on to the next suspension mod. Alright, so last test this video, I took the stock shocks and just moved them to the chassis, which is what a lot of people recommend. Unfortunately, the fronts are leaned quite a bit. I didn't want to drill holes in the chassis rails, but if you wanted them to be straight up, just drill directly underneath the actual mount. So yeah, it does sit low in the front, but that's not going to hurt with climbing. Let's see how it does with the big tires and a minimal amount of flex compared to like the double barrels. Because big tires equals higher center of gravity. Dang. I don't think straight up's gonna happen with this setup. It's just too high. Great mud truck setup though. I'm not knocking the mud trucks. High up like this, big tires, great for going through deep mud holes. But as you can see, even that's a lot easier without all that extra flex. Oop. And then attempt number 2. There we go. Oh, I gotta back up a bit. And we're good. Ooh, real iffy right there, but it does make it. So moving on, and for those of you that aren't aware, when you take the shocks off the Gladiator, the rear springs are stiffer than the front springs to compensate for the added weight on the rear with all the accessories and stuff. Just so you know, in case, you know, someone comes across this video that doesn't. Oh, that did really well. Now we come up to the side hill with the cheater tires. Ooh. We're done. Let's try that again. 3 times the charm. It's a heck of a side hill for a lifted rig. Alright, let's just move on. This hill should be no problem at all. No, big tires right over it. The last spot before we end the video. let's go take a look and I'll talk to you about my thoughts so far. After testing multiple shock setups, I still think stock is the best. And that's just because it's a good mix of plenty of flex. There's a little bit of up travel so that it looks realistic when it's moving around, and there's a little bit of dampening when you hit a bump and stuff to absorb that impact. Otherwise, I like about 75% drooped, which can be hard to pull off sometimes. Full droop isn't bad, but it's a little stiff and it doesn't quite look realistic to me as it's driving around, and I'm a real stickler for realism and stuff like that. It's just how I am. I'd prefer to have a scale build over a full-on comp build, because in my experience, if you have a rig that just goes over everything, no effort, you just point it and it goes, it gets boring real quick, because the challenge is the whole fun of it. So yeah, I'll try some more suspension setups, like if you want to see stock, which we've already seen stock, with some grease in it, versus say the hot racing shocks off my brushless build. I'll go ahead and throw those on here and we can compare. Otherwise, I think I'm done at the moment with shock mods, because I got something new here from FMS. My buddy actually helped me out to get this, and I owe him a couple payments to pay it back off through the revenue cycle and everything. But yeah, I'm not going to tell you what's in that box. You're going to have to tune in to the next video. And so you should subscribe if you haven't yet. It really helps the channel out. And be sure to hit that bell icon to turn on all notifications so you don't miss it. I'll talk to y'all in the next one. TTFN. Don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed. Bye.